Okay, let's get started learning the American T sound changes. These are really fundamental to the American dialect, so they'll make a great difference in your pronunciation. First, I want to just go through the words in the diagram, repeat, and listen to the different sounds. Time, fact, adventure, vacation, strategy, data, battle, quarter, attempt, strategic. Okay, now let's go through each of these sounds one by one and understand when and how to create the sound. The first one is the regular T. This is the somewhat breathy T sound. We use this sound when T is the first letter in a word or when it's next to a consonant, such as the spellings CT or ST. Time, fact. Another thing that happens is when we have the spelling TU, we sometimes change this to a ch sound. We say adventure or nature. Another very common one, which you probably already know, is that TI often sounds like sh, especially in suffixes like shun in vacation. Now the next one is the one that's most important. This is that Americans change T into a light D sound when it comes between two vowel sounds. Sounds, not spellings. So you have to be careful of those silent letters throughout the English language. When it comes between two vowel sounds. Strategy, data. A couple of extra rules that go along with this. The spellings TTLE, so vowel, TTLE, and vowel RT, vowel. With these spellings, we also change T into D. That spelling LE really sounds like ul. That's why it's natural for us to say battle or bottle, my bottle of water. And the same thing happens in words like quarter or shorter. But ultimately it's unnatural for us to use this T as a D when T is on the stress in a word. So we do say attempt, strategic. Okay, now you've learned the basic rules. I'm going to go through 3 questions that my students often ask. Number 1, is changing T to a D casual? The answer is no. It is fundamental to the American dialect, which means that public speakers, everyone on TV, basically, will change T into a D. It's just our dialect, and in fact, if we speak T as a T in words like water, if we say water, it sounds a bit British to us. It sounds sort of wrong, because we're not supposed to sound British. So it really is just part of our dialect, not casual at all. Now, the second question people often ask me is, well, I already have an accent, so will people understand me if I change T into a D? And the answer here is yes. And this is partly for the same reason I just mentioned. It's part of our dialect. So this is the sound we expect. When we see the word water, we expect that D sound in the middle. One extra note though, this is an unconscious sound for us, meaning that when we're going to school, when we're little kids, when we're going to school, we're taught that T sounds like T. But we also hear everyone around us, and we learn to speak it as D in these places. So it's kind of unconscious, meaning that if you talk to an American about this, you might even have to explain it because the person might not realize. So, but it is unconscious and really expected. People will understand you if you speak this way, and you will also sound more casual and more fluent. Now, the third question people often ask is this a true D? Can I say, is it a strong D? Can I say something like D? So the answer here is no. The American D sound isn't too strong anyway. And this sound is a little bit of a balance between strong and soft. So this one is incorrect. D. This one too is incorrect. D. This is correct. Data. So you have to find that balance, that place in between the strong and soft. Okay, that completes this introduction to the American T sounds. Okay, now let's talk about how the T sound can change in American English near the letter N. There are two ways that this happens. The first is when we have T that comes a little before an N. Here we sometimes take out the T and just do a very strong N sound. This is a little difficult, so just try it a couple times slowly. Patent. Patent. Mountain. Mountain. Fountain. Fountain. Certainly. Certainly. Now the second rule we'll do is much easier. Here we have vowel, NT vowel, and we often make T completely silent. Try these words. Internet. Fundamental. Interview. Enterprise. Okay, now I want to talk about when we change T in words like these. Now the T and N rules are in my course in separate sections from the T becoming a D rule, the other ones about American English. So they're separate for a reason. These rules are optional, but very, very popular. So if you're watching television now, you might notice internet commercials. So you really hear that there's no T at all, internet. Or when you hear people speaking, you are quite likely to hear people saying, important. That's so important to me. Or, I want to go hiking in the mountains. Something like that. Other very popular words are words like wanted. I wanted to go, but I couldn't. Or 20. Most people even learn just 20 instead of 20. So these rules are extremely popular. They aren't really in that many words. So if you learn a few words, you might start being able to use these sounds in your speech. And after you've learned a few, you're more likely to hear it next time you learn a new word. So these sounds are good to try to put into use. But if you want to just keep that regular T, that is okay too. Americans overall will use that regular T. We will say internet, interview, when we want to be clear, or perhaps when we're giving a presentation. But very naturally, and a lot of the time, we will change these T sounds. We'll say, he's a patent attorney, or I have an interview next week. Okay, that completes this lesson on how N relates to the American T sounds. Now let's practice the American T sound changes with the word lists. All of these words are arranged by syllable stress, stress within the word also. Repeat the following words and also stress the first syllable. Repeat. These words have T as a D sound. Bottleneck, creditor, data, fortify, letterhead, line item, meeting, monitor, positive, negative, notable, notary, notice, prototype, strategy, subtle, total, Twitter, vertical, veteran. Now some silent T's. Counter, enterprise, gentleman, internet, intersection, interval, quantum leap. Now the N sound. Patent, scrutiny, threatening. One more time with those. Patent, scrutiny, threatening. Now T or D with a ch or j. Actually, amateur, feature, fixture, fraudulent, juncture, natural, nurture, venture, virtual. Okay, now we will stress the second syllable. First, T as a D sound. Competitive, hiatus, velocity. Silent T's. Identify, identity. Now that N. Acquaintance, monotonous, important. One more time. Acquaintance, monotonous, important. Now that ch or j sound. Eventually, expenditure, habitual, procedure, unfortunate. Okay, now a few more with the third syllable stress. Repeat. First, a few with T as D sound. Creativity, get across, ultimatum. Silent T's. Elemental, fundamental, horizontal, intercompany, supplemental. Now that ch or j. Educational, graduation, individual, situation, undulation. Now let's compare just a couple words with differences in stress. Creative, creativity. Relative, relativity. Strategy, strategic. Okay, that completes this lesson. Okay, now let's practice speaking the T sound changes in some sentences. At the same time, listen for intonation. Which words are stressed, where I naturally pause, and which words are reduced or made soft and small. Repeat. I have an important meeting at 8 a.m. There are 10 line items on the agenda. The team that is monitoring customer data will identify positive and negative points. Our team is presenting a strategy for dealing with threatening, competitive companies. Our meeting will be live on the internet, and some coworkers in other countries will participate virtually. In the afternoon, I plan to venture out of the office and get a salad at a nearby cafe. During lunch, I will scrutinize my notes and highlight fundamental objectives or procedures. From 2 to 5, our team will develop the subtle points of our strategy. After work, there's a big going away party for my coworker. After 20 years of work, he was known as a fixture at the company. I'll know 5 or 6 people, but most people will be acquaintances. Actually, it'll be a good chance to network with a lot of enterprising people. Okay, that completes this lesson. Okay, now let's practice the same sentences that we did formally with a more casual flair. We will reduce some words in the same way. Words like and, for, and or can always be reduced in the middle of a phrase. But when we speak casual English, we also do other things, such as here, we will take out the H in the word have. We will take out the W and I sounds in the word will and attach the L to the word that precedes. And we can also take the word to all the way down to a D sound in some places. And beyond even that, we will use contractions more than before. Let's give this a try. I have an important meeting at 8 a.m. There are 10 line items on the agenda. The team that's monitoring customer data will identify positive and negative points. Our team's presenting a strategy for dealing with threatening, competitive companies. Our meeting will be live on the internet, and some coworkers in other countries will participate virtually. In the afternoon, I plan to venture out of the office and get a salad at a nearby cafe. During lunch, I will scrutinize my notes and highlight fundamental objectives or procedures. From 2 to 5, our team will develop the subtle points of our strategy. After work, there's a big going away party for my coworker. After 20 years of work, he was known as a fixture at the company. I'll know 5 or 6 people, but most people will be acquaintances. Actually, it'll be a good chance to network with a lot of enterprising people. Okay, good practice.